So you mentioned that you dropped out of college. I know you started a gym at one point,
Yeah.
right? Was that like the first? Is that what made you drop out of college, or tell me that whole story?
I'd wanted to open up a gym, just like every lifter. You have the idea, what if I open a gym one day? Or like, I would love to open up a gym one day. Everyone says that. And the funny thing is, most people say it, few people do it. And I say that not in an egotistic or narcissistic way, but because I remember I'd have these old heads in the commercial gym I used to train, be like, "Oh, I used to want to do that one day too," or blah blah blah. And they kind of say it in like a way that like, "Hey, little kid, that's a cool idea, but when you're older like me, you'll realize the real life is harder, or this or that." And I still get that shit. I remember this one guy message. I was on this other podcast I did with my buddy Austin, and one guy commented and acted like, and I was like 18 or 19 at the time, and he was like, this guy needs to pick up a tool and do real work. He doesn't know anything about life, and it's like, to an extent, I laugh at the life coaches that are 20 years old or something like that, but to act as if because of someone's age, they know nothing or they have no experience in life, or you just make a lot of assumptions that end up being false. But I digress. So I was mainly dropping out of school because I realized I was making much more money doing freelance video editing work than I was ever going to make personal training. So as soon as I could become a personal trainer, which was 18 years old, get my certification, I did that towards the tail end of high school. So in like the spring of like before I graduated, got my NASM CPT, and as soon as I could, applied, and I actually got hired as a personal trainer at my university, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. I got hired as a personal trainer at the university gym before I was even enrolled as a student, or like around the same time. So I was like enrolled to go there in that fall, but I started personal training there in like June. So before like August classes. And so it's kind of funny because they were like, "Oh, like, what class you in," or blah blah. And I'm like, "Well, I actually haven't started like my degree at all." But so started
Have you
doing
always
that.
had this?
Go
Have
ahead.
you always had this like entrepreneurial
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
passion?
I'm gonna make it, and I know I say I'll make it a short story, and I've been rambling a lot, but I'll make this a short story. Always as a kid, tried a million different things. Specifically, a lot of my video editing skills, which aren't like insanely elite, but I'm, very proficient, used to using Final Cut Pro because from 11, 10, 12 years old, was making all kinds of stupid videos, lightsabers, Harry Potter effects, cloning myself, everything you could imagine. But through that, fooling around, I developed skills that people pay a lot of money for, that both you do and I do. And luckily, those skills I developed fooling around at 12, 13 years old has afforded me almost everything I have today, which it's funny to think about it that way. But very entrepreneurial spirit from a kid. Like I said, I was not like a loner or a true outcast at all. I had friends. I wasn't like a loser by any means, but I was very independent from like a young age. Um, I think as my brother got older, he was 4 years older than me, so he was always in like the next school above me. I kind of didn't have like him to kind of lean on. He was very musically inclined. I was more athletically inclined. And then, yeah, through school, I was just, I don't know, very independent. I do different stuff. I tried to be like a rapper at one time.
Oh, dude,
Um,
I had that stage too.
Everybody, yeah. I tried to be a rapper. I thought I'd be a photographer. I thought I'd be like a film director. I kind of had that like 5, 6 years old mindset of, you can be anything you want to. And I think we should aspire to attain more of that childlike curiosity and that childlike excitement about the world, because I think too many people, the older they get, they kind of get crushed by reality. And instead of trying to resist and push back and say, hey, yeah, things are a lot harder. I can't just be an astronaut or the president of the United States just because I want to. But there's a lot I can do. There's a lot of steps I can take to actually live out my passions in a more realistic manner.
I
Uh,
think that mindset is so important to have. Like
oh
you
yeah,
mentioned that the old guy telling you can never start a gym because it's, oh,
yeah.
I used to think about that, but they let
Well,
reality get to
people
them.
try and uh, they try and fix it or put their failures onto you. They try and say, because I couldn't do this, you can't. But it's like, you're not me, you know?
I think it makes them feel better because
It does, yeah.
I don't know if there's some sort of regret there or, unfulfilled passions or what it is, but they want it to do it, but maybe through you not being able to do it either, it justifies themselves.
Yes,
in
that's
not
exactly what
doing
it is. They're looking for some kind of justification, and yeah, they project their own regrets onto you.
Right.
But anywho, so I got to the point back in college, if we fast forward a little bit, where I was making fine money, part-time working personal trainer, doing classes in school, but I was also working an extra, I don't know, 2 to 6 hours a day, video editing, just random stuff. Maybe it wasn't that many hours, because it's ramped up more so after I dropped out, but at least an extra hour to 4 hours a day. I started to build up this clientele of real estate agents primarily. It was also some small businesses on websites like Fiverr, but then I brought them beyond Fiverr just to work personally so I wouldn't get the old fee that they charge. And but I was developing this clientele, and I was like, man, I'm doing this work during class, after class, between class, and I'm making a lot more per hour doing this stuff than I am personal training. And so I was like, man, I did the math, and I was like, shoot, I can literally make a living doing just this video editing. If I drop out, instead of turning down a few clients like I was at the moment, I could just take on all the clients and do this full time and make way more money. And so I presented that to my now wife, at the time girlfriend, Maddie, and she was kind of in tears and in shambles at first. She was like, "What do you mean you're gonna drop out? What are you gonna do? How do you know that's gonna work?" And a lot of fear, and then a lot of it, and this is how I felt too, was what are the parents gonna say? What are people gonna say? Now my parents, they're gonna have to tell their friends, "Oh, Brock dropped out of university or college or whatever," and you could say, well, I mean, you're dropping out because you're making a great living, right? It's like, yeah, but it's perception, it's cultural norms, it's expectations. And even today, if my parents hear this, they'll be like, oh, that's not true. But they still don't fully respect or understand what I do. Even when I owned a gym, a physical gym, a thriving business, even when I make as much money as I do doing what I do, even when I do a paid social ad with Hoka or Optimum Nutrition, they're like, oh, that's cool, but you should start thinking about your resume or like your career,
Dude.
And it's just a cultural difference, right? They don't understand it. And, it's also a factor of understanding what's important to you. I don't ever want to work the same career for decades. I don't want to climb a corporate ladder. I don't want to be stuck in this rat maze that is, cultural expectations. I'd rather never make six figures, slave away, or I'd rather never make six figures, only make 30, 40 grand a year, make enough to live and, do whatever, but be doing things I love, be doing things that fulfill me, that excite me, that spark my curiosity, that garner my enthusiasm, than, making 200 grand a year doing finances for Capital One and just hating my life and coming home exhausted. And it's just it's not how I want to live my life. So, I presented that to wife, to family. They thought I was crazy. They're like, well, just stay one more semester and then see if you change your mind or something like that. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, no, dude, I'm dropping out. This is a waste of money. Because the thing too that a lot of people go into degrees for is they go into degrees that kind of do nothing for them. I was going into exercise science, which is basically every high school athlete was like, oh, that has sports science. I'll do that. You know what I mean? So that, you have a ton of athletes, you have a ton of people that work out or whatever that take exercise science. But the truth is, what does an exercise science get you? Well, you can go chase your CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach. You could lead that into a personal or physical therapy. You could lead it into a few things, but for the most part, those require other certifications or further schooling. But it alone only really gets you a personal training job. And I was like, dude, I was a personal trainer before I even went to, college. So it's like, you don't need this. And I was making more doing the video editing, blah, blah, blah. But fortunately for me, is the pandemic happened. That sounds like an awful thing to say. But
How dare you?
But I only say fortunate because it gave me the chance to fully drop out, because classes went fully virtual. I was like, shit, I'm not even doing this virtual work. I kind of just let it fizzle out. And by then, my parents just accepted it,
Dude, I have a political science degree, so you are speaking to the choir about
Yeah.
useless degrees.
Dude, yeah, political science is one of it's all right. I'd give it like the three most useless degrees, in no order: exercise science, political science, and psychology.
Dude,
The most
it
pointless ones, dude.
yeah, and it's like the only reason I even pursued that was because my parents put in my head when I was in
Yes.
like middle school that I should be an attorney. And so
Oh,
all through middle school, all through high school, I never really know what I wanted to do. But I was like, oh, well, my parents say I should be an attorney, and they tell me I kind of have like the persona and maybe the mindset to be a
what
good
do your parents
attorney. And
do?
what do they do?
Yeah.
One is a human resource manager and one is a nurse. So like,
Okay.
I mean, pretty like standard like 9 to 5
Yeah. At least
corporatized
one of them went to
jobs.
like a fair bit of schooling though with nurse. You probably had to go through some other programs after a 4 year,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just again, I never knew exactly what I wanted to do, but it's crazy how similar our origin stories are in
If
that
you,
like
yeah,
and
I was
I
gonna
started
say,
editing video,
yeah.
making dumb ass GoPro videos with my
Oh
friends,
yeah.
like it's just the dumbest stuff.
Uh-huh.
But through that, learning this skill where it never even occurred to me until I was in college of like, wow, you can actually monetize video editing. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the internet and social media just exploded that whole industry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, referencing like nurses, and maybe your mom loves it, so I'm not speaking for her. And there's certainly nurses that do love it, but I talked to a lot of nurses that are either my wife's friends or uh, people I knew that were members at the gym, and a lot of them like regret the job. Like the work they know is meaningful and it's purposeful, but they look at it like, man, I went through all this schooling, I'm working ridiculous hours, I'm exhausted. They're emotionally drained from all the people they have to take care of that are sick or dying, and it's tough because we need those people, but the debt they go into and the commitment that it requires of them is just like brutal, you know. Not
Yeah,
to go
man, I
deep
think,
into that, but
no, I mean,
yeah,
honestly, I think that's most people that just work a 9 to 5 corporatized kind of job
yeah,
where like you said they're probably in a bunch of student debt from years of schooling.
yeah,
They're not at a place that they love. They're not like doing something that they're truly passionate about. But I think it seems like nowadays it's more normalized, at least for our generation, to be a solopreneur or
yeah.
start a business and do some sort of freelance work or whatever it is to be self-employed. So all that being said, let's go back to you starting a gym. So you dropped out of college. Actually, I have one other follow-up question regarding
Yeah,
that.
do
Like,
it.
how hard was it, or was it hard at all to kind of ignore what your parents were telling you, what Maddie was telling you, friends of like, was that
Yeah.
difficult to say no to them and just keep your head down and go down the path that you wanted to go down?
It wasn't hard because a lot of decisions I've made, I've just kind of through lifting, I just became more and more, because lifting is a very independent sport, more and more apathetic, fuck you, excuse my language if you can't curse on this podcast.
Oh, we're gonna cuss so fucking
Good.
much.
I came very much like averse to other people in a sense that I don't think it was like overly healthy, but I meant it more in like a not screw other people, but more so I'm gonna do what I want. Like it was more focused on me, more focused on what I want out of things, and so slowly I was making more decisions just on myself. I dropped out of or I stopped playing like baseball in high school, which like was like my dad's dream for me was just playing baseball, and so that was a tough decision, but I committed to that, committed to lifting. Um, there was other decisions I'd make that would be kind of against the grain or against what my parents would prefer for me. Uh, I got this tattoo on my hand, which my hand and forearm that my parents were not on board with at all, and and so I just made a number of decisions like that to where I knew that what I wanted was more important than what someone else wanted for me. And
That's an
so
important mindset to have.
yeah, and so it wasn't that hard of a decision to make, although a little bit of there was some nerves. It wasn't like I was. It was more the unknown that scared me. It wasn't like I was scared that I wasn't gonna have money or that I wouldn't figure things out. I had this confidence in myself that if a business I own's failing or whatever happens, like I will make it work. Like I'll do the grunt work, I'll figure it out, I'll scrape by. Um, I'll make it happen. I'll fight off the wall. But it was more the unknown. Like, what are people gonna say? I have all this free time now, and this also happened during the pandemic where everyone had free time because there was like nowhere to go, nothing was open. So it was like this weird thing where it's like, man, it was like this first moment of my life where, you know, I don't have an obligation like school. It's just me. I'm living in an apartment with my girlfriend. I don't have anywhere to be. It's all up to me. I can make as much money as I can work, but I have to go like get the work, I have to find the work, I have to do the work. It's the world is your oyster. You know what I mean? So like that unknown and that uncertainty that we all eventually face at some point after you graduate. You know, you become an adult and you make your own decisions. Um, it comes with a lot of anxiety in a way, right? You know, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what your next day or week's going to look like. So uh, I
I
think
think
that
that's
most
what